So we're headed to the beaches of Normandy today, and it's something that I have never actually done before. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, because I don't have a car, and it's something that you really need a car for. But beyond that, I think I'm actually kind of nervous to do it. I'm worried that it's going to be kind of an overwhelming experience. And given how the world is going today, it might be also it might be a little intense. That's not a bad thing. But after a decade of living in France, I'm finally going to go. And I don't really know exactly what all we're going to do today. We're about to find out. But first things first, bakery. Bonjour. Un financier pistache, un croissant, un pain au chocolat, et peut-être une quiche. They said to meet at a Harley dealership. This is a Triumph dealership. Shelves I've seen in a while. It's like a 2.5 hour drive out, and we're about an hour and a half in. Stopping for some coffee and meat sticks. Nope. And of course, it's a bunch of tour guides in a car talking about history, which has been great. But a lot for first thing in the morning. Our first stop is going to be the German cemetery, and then we're going to end up at Omaha Beach around lunchtime, so either before or after lunch, and then end up at the American cemetery with like a stop at the Overlord Museum along the way if we're good and on time. That's the carrot to keep us on track. So we're gonna make sure to be good. But before we get to all that, and I feel like probably sharing the experience and all the thoughts that come out of it, I should probably tell you a little bit about this video's sponsor. At this point, we're all pretty familiar with VPNs, but just in case you needed the refresher, a VPN hides your IP address. Where are you connecting from? And that helps to protect you in more ways than one. I mean, they also encrypt your information, which is really great to keep outsiders from observing and stealing any of your information as you go. But it also helps to obfuscate where you are, which can be really useful when travel planning specifically. It's one of the things I've been using it for the most recently, which is pretending I'm in different countries as I look for train tickets, planes, hotels, and then seeing what deals come through, and often saving a little bit of money. The other thing that's really helpful is when traveling, being able to access whatever media it is that you want to be watching when you're on the road, whether that's music that you can't listen to in certain countries or videos and movies that you might miss out on as a result. I'm really grateful that NordVPN has sponsored our day out here on the beaches of Normandy. We're starting out with the German cemetery. We'll get to that here in a second. If you're interested in checking out NordVPN and you'd like to help my channel, I appreciate them sponsoring this video. You can use my QR code and get 10% off, or you just go straight to nordvpn/jswanson, and that'll set you up. I wanted to get the sponsored segment out of the way early here today because I feel like the rest of this is gonna be a reflective video, and it felt a little bit odd to mix them both. And I wanted to do this before I even walked into the cemetery. So we're gonna go see the German cemetery first. I'll explain a little bit of that here in a second. But yeah, let's go and enjoy a little bit of sunshine even. This is kind of nice. Thanks again to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. So the German cemetery is small. So there's like 21,000 people buried here, and it's not maintained through taxpayer dollars, where like the Americans and the American cemetery, where we will be heading in a bit, is, you know, very clearly like something that a monument we want to maintain. This one is much trickier for the German population for obvious reasons to maintain as a monument. And one of the things that the French did, because I mean, we'll see, for me, I have these images in my head of the cemeteries with the long rows of white, you know, tombstones and just something majestic that I am very much looking forward to seeing. And here you'll notice that there are all these black stones. You have these crosses, these little sections of black crosses, but then they're just little flat black stones that are kind of anonymizing. There's not a lot of information on these. And that was actually by the request of the French, because they didn't want this to be anything that kind of alluded to anything positive, obviously. They don't want to lionize the German soldiers, the Nazis that died here in France. And so it's definitely it's a beautiful little park. This monument in the middle, pretty incredible. It's very somber, quiet. It's a cemetery for sure, but it's really interesting because it's the first taste of like actually being in the midst of the history that we know so much about. I feel like especially as an American and growing up in the States, we learned so much more about World War II in general than World War I, the involvement of the United States, the stories that come along with that, the movies, everything. But it's still kind of just stories. I've definitely come across World War II history stuff. I've gone and seen some of the trenches, the World War I museum just outside of Paris. I think it was in Meaux. I've seen the museum pieces, but there's something about being here, especially with these black stones, black crosses, like Nazi soldiers being buried around, that adds a weight to it and a reality, like a granularity to it. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but something more than I think I may have experienced yet. So we're off to a start here. He said that it's even to the point that it's the Americans, the American cemetery, that come here and maintain this, like mow the lawns, because they need that level of support. It's very small too. I mean, you said to pay attention to this, but like the car park, see how this compares in a minute.
The beach, the invasion front from end to end is about 40 miles. And D-Day happens and 160,000 people land on D-Day. But then it's not like D-Day is done and then that's it. That's just the beginning of the Normandy campaign then.
So our second stop was Pointe du Hoc, which is a natural feature down here. It's a point that stands between a bunch of cliffs that actually was a ranger operation to take the gun emplacements up here. It turned out that the guns weren't even here, but they've preserved this battlefield. So you can still see all the craters, like this behind me right here, crater. Over here, crater from artillery fire, which is nuts. But apparently John Wayne then reenacted this in The Longest Day. I'm learning a lot about all kinds of things today. But it was a really small operation for like 250 guys that scaled these cliffs, and they had these massive grappling hooks, and it's just the kind of thing that, like, it's a detail that I feel like is lost on me in the history of World War II. But man, what a scary, scary thing to take. And beautiful now. But it's so interesting how the coastline is still peppered with these German bunkers that Hitler was trying to make his fortress of Europe. And we still have proof of that today in this concrete that may never go away, but also just like that they've left the bunkers in place everywhere, so that here, obviously, in a monument that's protected by the French government and maintained by the American government, I suppose. But then the importance of remembering the history of this, especially as it passes out a living memory. I'm really glad I'm out here. And I'm really glad that the weather is turning out to be great. I need my sunglasses. I've been on German bunkers when I was in La Rochelle, but I've never been in one of these. It's kind of spooky. The interesting thing about the story too is that they had to take these cliffs because of these giant guns that were all ranged in for the beaches. So they would have caused absolute havoc. These guys risk their lives. Out of the 250 that actually make it here, only around 90 survive. And the guns weren't even actually ready to be fired. Like, they weren't in the emplacements where you saw like the big pin and like where they could rotate the guns on the cliffs. They were pushed back like a half mile and they weren't even in service. So these guys got up here, risked everything, found out these guns aren't even in use, and then because they had to fight off like the Germans who then came to reclaim the territory that they had just taken, they didn't get the help that they were supposed to get because things were going so badly on the beach that they diverted their immediate relief to the beaches. And so in the end, they're waiting here for support. They run out of ammunition. They're fighting the Germans with German weapons. And because the Americans, when they get up here, only hear German weapons, when they come to relieve them, bombard them or shell them for like an hour before they finally figure out, oh, no, our boys are still there. It's a story I'd never heard before. It's really interesting. Also, if you're interested in taking this tour, there's a limited number of them, but I'll be sure to leave a link below so you can come with Richard on a tour of the beaches. Don't worry, I got you covered. I was gonna say. A little bit of a seaside lunch. Moule frite for me, which is the good local connection. I don't know what I'm saying. And a little bit of cidre. Why am I saying it in French?
Cider.
I'm useless. Okay. Did it? Because you're Norman, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I was born in Chambon.
Yeah. Okay. Voila.
So,
And it passed.
Cidre is the best cider. Yeah, the French one. It passed.
It
More than
passed. Yeah. It was really nice. Very soft, sweet. Anyways, delightful lunch break. La Sapinière. And on our way back out, now we're gonna go to the Omaha Beach, which is just down the street from where we are right now. There are two things that stand out to me about Omaha Beach, being here in person. One is that like the hills facing the water are way farther back than I would have expected. From like watching Saving Private Ryan or something like that, they seem like right up against the water. There's a lot more ground to cover between them. And the second is how it's like there's just modern houses lining the beach. Feels kind of odd. And the stories that Richard's telling are so helpful for the context and putting some of the history around it, but giving so much more detail than you get from popular media. And we're about to go into the American Cemetery right now. But just the lottery of war is what's standing out to me as well from this. Just the sheer luck of the draw. Whether you ended up getting dropped on a beach where you were gonna get absolutely destroyed, or you happen to get dropped on a part of the beach where there was very little resistance and nothing went terribly wrong. It's been a really interesting experience so far. But this is probably the most famous part, the part that stands out most in my mind, aside from the beaches. I'm very curious to see what it's like. There's a huge parcel of land that the French gifted to the American government and is maintained by the monuments. He keeps saying the acronym for it, but the American Monuments something. I'll put it on the screen. And feels very different just walking through here even. With the memorial and the reflecting pool, the layout of this place is so different than I imagined it would be. He said it's laid out to be like a church, with this being the congregation. And it's beautiful, especially with the view down to the ocean. This is incredible. I'm really glad I'm finally getting to come see this. He told us that in order to have a tombstone, you actually had to have a body to bury. And so all the people who went missing or who they couldn't bury were put on a wall instead. That's a really beautiful memorial. This is one of I think the single biggest memorial I've ever been to. In a way, it's like a little bit smaller than I kind of imagined and bigger at the same time, especially with all of this. It's incredible. It feels very distinctly American in a way to be here, like the garden, the style of it all. The main thing that it leaves me kind of thinking, and I've been thinking this all day in coming here, is like, Can we not do this again? I think that's the whole point of World War II movies, of memorializing the dead, those that sacrificed themselves for the world that we live in now. And that peace hasn't been equally distributed, but in the West, in the States, in Europe, which Europe had been torn apart by war repeatedly for centuries, millennia, like nonstop, for the sacrifice to be made to give us some level of peace. And then in the midst of all the uncertainty that we're facing right now, and some of the shameful stuff that's happening, especially with relation to the alliance that we have, that these people died to secure France, to free France, to stop this war, and ultimately to build like a strong relationship, a strong alliance, a strong system with Europe. I mean, at home right now, here, and I feel like I'm in America, actually, in this memorial. So I was gonna say at home, but in France and in Paris, like we're being instructed to put together survival materials to make it for 72 hours in case of climate or attack. Like, what an unprecedented time as far as our stability goes, and then to come to a place like this and be reminded the cost of losing that stability, the cost of setting it up in the first place. Can we just not do this ever again?
I love the trees.
It feels so American. I feel the grass does make it super American. I honestly feel like I'm in a park in America right now. This is wild. It's gorgeous though.
Yeah, if it was French, they just gravel everything.
It's true. It's interesting because there is a definitive style between English gardens, French gardens, American gardens.
Yeah, they're very different. Yeah.
But this does feel like walking through a beautiful garden in like an upscale part of the U.S.
Yeah.
Our last stop of the day. What's the name of this museum again?
Overlord.
The Overlord, that's right. How could I forget that? The last stop of the day is the Overlord Museum. It's as tall as I am. It's really cool to see a landing craft in person. For one, this thing feels, with the mannequin standing in there, it feels way smaller. The other thing that I didn't think about until today was that they made multiple trips with these things. So they're coming, landing, unloading, and then going back out and doing it all over again. In my mind, they came in once and that was it, but it's really cool to see this in person. The sense of scale is still way too difficult for me to fully comprehend. It's massive. Like, you see these things in movies or video games. I did not expect it to feel bigger in person.
Yeah.
The scale of these things. Last stop of the day. The focus of the Overlord Museum, they had some really interesting stuff in there, but the most was the material, like the machinery that they had in there. That German personnel carrier was mind-blowingly large. So much bigger than I would have ever expected from movies or from video games. Like, holy cow. We had some traffic, but we left at 7:30. We made it back at just before 7:30. So it was going to be an 11-hour day. Ended up being a 12-hour day. It was phenomenal, though. Lots to think about. Really, really. And obviously, my bike's over here. Obviously, with everything going on in the world right now, a little bit heavy, but really worth it. And I think important to engage with and to think about this. Where are we going? What are the choices we're making? We really need to be thinking about that. Thanks to all my patrons for making this possible. I'll shout out Paul as today's patron producer, and thanks to all my patrons for making this possible, for sending me out. And I'll see you again bright and early very, very soon.